looking to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on today's headlines.
So that's the problem.
Flooding worsens in the northern Philippine province of Isabela even after Tropical Storm Nalgae or Paeng moved across the South China Sea. The Philippine Space Agency has recommended precautionary measures following the launch of the Long March 5B on Monday at 3:37 p.m. Philippine time from the Wenchang Space Launch Center on Hainan Island. And Moodys Analytics forecasts the Philippines' inflation rate to accelerate to 7.4% this October, faster than the previous month's 6.9%. First in our news, flooding worsened in the northern Philippine province of Isabela even after Tropical Storm Nalgae or Paeng moved across the South China Sea. Houses and rice fields in Ilagan City are submerged after several days of raining and swelling rivers, which was aggravated by the release of water from a dam. Meanwhile, President Marcos held a press briefing with officials of different agencies. Let's listen in.
Pero after, in the recent years, yung dating dinadaanan ng baha, hindi na doon. Iba na yung dinadaanan eh. That's the problem that talagang may climate change talaga. It's undeniable. So that's the problem doon sa preparation natin.
Yes,
if you remember Odette, we were preparing, tatama na naman ng Region 8 kumabig, dito pumunta. Went to Surigao. So talagang iba na hindi na kagaya ng dati. So kailangan talaga nating bantayan na mabuti. I think Pag-asa naman is giving us a good. And the other feature that you mentioned, ang na-notice namin, yung bagyo, sasabihin pagka 1 or 2 days bago tumama sa Pilipinas, signal 1. Medyo magsi-signal 2. Pag malapit na, ang bilis lumakas. Within 3-4 hours, yung Odette, naging signal 2, naging signal 4. Within a few hours. Ganun kabilis yung paglakas ng ano. Kaya we have to be kailangan bantayan natin ulit. Kaya yung prepositioning ng relief goods, ng prepositioning ng lahat ng asset natin, pati yung mga vehicles, lahat yan, kailangan pagbantayan natin na mabuti. And that's why also yung preemptive evacuation is very, very important. Mukha namang nagawa ninyo eh.
Yes, sir.
Pero kaya nga hindi nga ini-expect doon eh. Na doon you never had that before. You never had that problem before. Ngayon ko lang narinig na may nangyaring ganyan. So it's really, we have to just adjust.
Meanwhile, the Philippine News Agency reported that Philippine Air Force S-701 Black Hawk and the Bell 412 combat utility helicopters have already conducted the rapid damage assessment needs analysis and relief missions over Cotabato and Maguindanao provinces that have been severely affected by severe tropical storm Paeng. In a statement late on Monday night, PAF spokesperson Colonel Maria Consuelo Castillo said these missions were done in coordination with the 205th Tactical Helicopter Wing and Tactical Operations Group 12. Castillo said these missions also included the transport of relief goods to Lebac, Palimbang, and Calamansig, which are municipalities in Sultan Kudarat Province, and Datubla, Sinsuat, Maguindanao, respectively. Pag-asa is warning that another tropical storm is now heading towards the Philippines, even as Nalgae moved across the South China Sea. Starting on Wednesday, the new weather system could bring more heavy rains and misery to southern and central regions already badly affected by Nalgae or Paeng. The Philippine Space Agency, or PhilSA, has recommended precautionary measures following the launch of the Long March 5B on Monday at 3:37 p.m. Philippine time from the Wenchang Space Launch Center of Hainan Island. The rocket is carrying the Mengtian Laboratory Module for the Tiangong Space Station, a research facility being built by China in orbit. Based on the notice to airmen, or NOTAM, issued by the Civil Aviation Administration of China, or CAAC, to the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP, Drone Zone 1, or Drop Zone 1, is approximately 72 kilometers from Bajo de Masinloc, while Drop Zone 2 is approximately 39 kilometers from Busuanga, Palawan. Anticipated to fall within these areas are the expected unburned debris, or parts of the rocket designed to be discarded as the rocket enters outer space. These components get separated from the rocket minutes after the launch and are designed to shed over bodies of water to minimize the hazard of falling in populated areas. The booster stages are expected to fall on Drop Zone 1, while the rocket fairing is expected to fall on Drop Zone 2. While debris from Long March 5B is unlikely to fall on land features or inhabited areas in the Philippine territory, falling debris still poses a considerable risk to ships, aircraft, fishing boats, and other vessels that will pass through the drop zones. In other news, Moodys Analytics forecasts the country's inflation rate to accelerate to 7.4% this October, faster than the previous month's 6.9%. The inflation forecast is included in its economic preview for the week covering October 31 to November 4. In a reply to questions from the Philippine News Agency, Moodys Analytics country analyst for the Philippines, Sonia Zhu, said their protection was made on account of the transport fare hikes and higher food prices against the typhoon season, which caused extension damage to crop yield and disruption to supply chain. She said the easing of global energy prices may help to offset utility prices, but the impact of overall headline inflation will be limited. The Philippine Statistics Authority is scheduled to report the October 2022 inflation no later than November 4. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas forecast domestic rate of price increases for October this year to stay within 7.1 to 7.9%. Last September, inflation rate accelerated to its highest since October 2018 due to higher annual growth rate of the food and non-alcoholic beverages index, as well as the housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels. The outlook for global labor markets has worsened in recent months, with job vacancies and job growth likely to decline significantly in the final quarter of this year. That's according to a new report by the International Labor Organization. The 10th edition of the Monitor on the World of Work finds that rising inflation is causing real wages to fall in many countries. Let's listen in.
The earlier recovery that we saw at the beginning of the year as post-COVID is now either stalling or reversing. And in terms of job market, this is really, we talk about equivalent of 40 million jobs in terms of number of hours worked. So that means that the current crisis, be it the war in Ukraine, be it the inflation, be it the energy crisis, all compound are causing impact on the job market. What is also worrisome is not just about the number of hours worked, it's also about the quality of the work. And we have seen the recovery, if any, is happening more and more in the informal, precarious sector. And obviously the high-skilled job, particularly in IT, for example, can easily recover in a very formal setup than the low-skilled job. So the quality is also a problem. My final point is that, the global risk of economic downturn, together with the current inflation, it is a problem. Yet the fiscal and monitoring and tightening that is happening to control the inflation should not be done in a standalone manner. It has to be integrated with social measures, particularly to protect the most vulnerable and those that have no single social protection plan or scheme. So for us, that's why we are calling for an integrated approach. We need the fiscal policy to react to the inflation, let's be very clear. But it has to also be taken into account or be done in a human way, also coupled with a social measure, for example, the cash transfer, or considering the minimum wage, or ensuring at least that the most vulnerable have access to a minimum income for the household. So that compound measure is really necessary for us to face the current situation.
And tonight's other news, in the small Malaysian town of Sitiawan, a family-run business makes traditional miswa noodles by hand, stretching them out on wooden racks to dry in the baking hot sun. Known as thread noodles due to their long, thin form, the food was originally brought to the Southeast Asian country by Chinese immigrants. Take a look.
我会担心这个行业。做面线这个行业有一天会彻底的失传掉，因为它太多工，而且辛苦。现在年轻人很少会这样子去要做这么辛苦的工作。然后，如果可以的话，我会给我的孩子过去接触这份工作。他要不要去做这工作不用紧，只要他学会怎样做就可以了，至少他不会失传去。
Here, miswa noodles is usually eaten with red rice, wine, and chicken. In Chinese culture, miswa is traditionally eaten on birthdays. It is eaten in mainland China as well as in Cambodia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, Brunei, Thailand, Myanmar, and particularly in both Taiwan and the Philippines, which have the highest populations of Fujianese outside of mainland China. Here in the Philippines, it is usually eaten with pork bola-bola soup. Now, the ancient combat sport of Muay Thai has set its sights on Olympic glory. But a recent death has highlighted safety concerns that could slow its path to a Games debut. According to the Bangkok Post, Thai boxer Pampet Padongchai suffered a brain injury in a knockout loss to Anthony TFC, a Thai-style or Muay Thai boxer from France, at a Fighter X show at the Tupatemi Air Force Boxing Stadium on July 15. Take a look.
ทำใจได้ไหมก็ทำใจได้บ้างแล้วแต่ก็ยังไม่เต็มร้อยยังเสียใจอยู่ก็จะทำตามที่สัญญาเขาไว้คือจะดูแลลูกเขาให้ดีที่สุดจะดูพ่อแม่แทนเขาจะทำหน้าที่แทนเขาค่ะ
Muay Thai, known as the art of 8 limbs, for the different ways opponents can strike each other with knees, fists, kicks, and elbows, is Thailand's de facto national sport and is a source of immense pride. Now, since the July death, the Thai authorities have increased their efforts to enforce more rules and inspections in a sport that's steeped in centuries of tradition. The sport secured Olympic recognition in 2021, but whether the Games will ever host a Muay Thai event depends on efforts to make the fight safer and more inclusive. Bids to make the sport more inclusive saw women fighters go toe-to-toe last year for the first time at the Lumpini Stadium in Bangkok, Muay Thai's home, run by the army since it opened in 1956. Now, the sports authorities in Thailand are also looking to clamp down on the involvement of children in bouts. Take a look.
We are now working very hard with the government of Thailand and with everyone involved to ensure that there's no more child fighting, because this is one of our biggest concerns. Kids 10, 11, 12 years old fighting professional Muay Thai. This is something Thailand must change.
Now, regular cage fights have long been one route out of poverty for children from rural Thailand. But the death of a 13-year-old in a bout in 2018 caused outrage in the kingdom. Youngsters can earn hundreds of dollars a fight from promoters and gamblers. But the bouts often take place outside and regulatory framework and without protective equipment. The push for better standards comes as the sport seeks to progress along the path to the Olympic Games. Last year, the International Olympic Committee formally recognized the IFMA, which has nearly 150 member countries. The 7th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference kicked off in Indonesia. AHP park managers, committee members, and other key stakeholders are now in Bogor and are set to discuss how to further strengthen the network of the best protected areas in ASEAN. In an interview with PTV4, Clarissa Arida from the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity in the country said there are many pressures confronting our ecosystems. Take a look.
We are confronted now with a lot of these anthropogenic pressures on our ecosystems, exploitation of our natural resources, expansion of agricultural production systems. We are really encouraging partnership, not only additional support from the government, but really partnership with local community organizations, local governments, and even private sector to support the management of the park.
Now, according to the Convention, biological diversity, or CBD, among the numerous roadblocks to achieving global biodiversity targets, the lack of public awareness on the crucial role of biodiversity ranks as one of the most concerning. To help bridge this awareness gap, ASEAN will recognize outstanding individuals from the region who have contributed significantly to biodiversity efforts. The award ceremony will be one of the highlights of the 7th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference. To further strengthen the network of AHPs in the ASEAN region, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, as the AHP Secretariat, organizes this conference every 3 years. Dinosaur fans got a glimpse of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, or T-Rex skeleton as it went on display on Singapore before an auction next month. The adult dino, which stands 4.6 meters tall and 12 meters long, is thought to be male. It was excavated from private land in the Hells Creek Formation in Montana in the U.S. in 2020.
So Shen is one of these very rare skeletons of T-Rexes. You have about 20 that exist in the world. It makes them extremely rare. We're absolutely delighted and honored to be offering it in auction in Asia, in Hong Kong, more recently. And we've seen in the auction of this very rare fossil an increased interest of Asian collectors and some sustained activity in bidding. So we thought bringing it here in Asia was the right thing to do. There's also none of the 20 T-Rex that exist in the world is being owned by either an Asian institution or an Asian collector. So we really wish that Shen will find a new home amongst our Asian collectors here. We truly hope that Shen will make its way to public institution. The whole skeleton has been fully researched, has been recorded in 3D, and all the elements of the skeleton will be made available for the public to research. So we believe it's an object that is, has to be seen by the public, and we strongly hope that the new owner, whether it's an institution or a private, will ensure that it's being seen by the public.
Hopefully, a museum will buy it and put it on display for all to see, right? And having Asia would make it more accessible to this part of the world. I understand.
No, I've never seen like a real life fossil before. All you see are like those animatronics kind of thing, and it's nothing in comparison to this, whether it's the size or just like how it makes you feel, because this one dates back so long ago.
I'm a bit surprised that it's smaller than what I expected, because in the movies it used to be really huge. So I have not seen a real life bones.
In July, the first skeleton of a Gorgosaurus went under the hammer for $6.1 million in New York. Another T-Rex, Stan, was sold for $31.8 million by Christie's in 2020. But the trend for prehistoric auction lots has some experts concerned. It's a sad thing that dinosaurs are becoming collectible toys for the oligarch class, and I can only hope this fat end soon, according to Steve Brusade, a paleontologist at the University of Edinburgh. He told AFP the trend was bad news for science and remains belonged in museums. Thomas Carr, a paleontologist from the U.S., meanwhile, described such sales as being unquestionably harmful to science, even if the skeletons had been studied before being sold. The 1,400-kilo frame, composed of about 80 bones, will be the first T-Rex skeleton auction in Asia, according to Christie's, which hasn't given an estimate for the lot. Meanwhile, cyclists and pedestrians are stopping to pose with a giant rampaging Tyrannosaurus Rex or T-Rex along a new cycling and jogging track in Singapore. Over 20 models from 9 different species are installed along the kilometer-long path. The Jurassic Mile is part of a new 3.5-kilometer connector that allows visitors to cycle into the city from the airport and vice versa. Take a look.
That's all. Get ready.
It's very fun. Yeah, because my kids like dinosaurs, like most of the kids, and he know a lot of the species. So while he walks around, he will try to name all the different type of dinosaurs. Yeah.
Finally, in our news, Thai teenager Ataya Tetico has become the second youngest world #1 in women's golf history after a stunning debut year on the LPGA Tour. The 19-year-old, who has triumphed twice on the U.S.-based Elite Women's Tour in 2022 and has 12 other top 10 finishes this season, takes over at the top from South Korea's Ko Jin-young. Ko had been top of the rankings since January but suffered a recent wrist injury and withdrew from her home BMW Ladies Championship last month after 2 poor rounds. Ataya is only the second player under 20 to reach #1. New Zealand's Lydia Ko was 17 when she first topped the rankings in 2015. Ko is now world #3. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast of ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.